Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. This podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host. And today I have a special guest that I want to introduce in just a moment. But I would love to ask you to leave a comment, to subscribe, like, share, to get this out to more people so that special guests like this can get their voice heard even more. So now let's get started. So this is Luis Aguilar. Did I say it right?
Luis Aguilar.
Aguilar. I knew I'd do it.
Close, very close.
Anyway,
Mhm.
he and I know each other because we are participants in a special group, the Do the Thing formula. And we've gotten to know each other a little bit with that. But he has an amazing group of his own that is just growing by leaps and bounds. And he's got such amazing information, and I just wanted to get him on here because he's such a nice guy for one thing, and I would love to hear even more of his story, because you know how it is, we we have a story that we hear, superficially, but I love to dive in a little bit more on things, and so I'm excited to hear what your story is. So would you by chance start with, how did you get to where you were interested in being the fitness guru kind of thing that you're working with now? And I mean, how did you get to that place?
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This is really amazing, Vicky. Yeah, just glad to be here and participate part of your movement here. So to get back to your question, how did I get started? Um, I can't really say that it was one particular moment. It was more like a growth process, because exercise has always been a part of my life. I think I was that kid who, in class in elementary school and high school just needed to move, but didn't know it until later on. So, actually, now that I'm running my own business, I tend to get up often in between breaks. I do a little bit of exercise just because I am in tune. So, how did it start? I think it was recognizing that exercise was something that was important to me. Later did I realize that, emotions and stuff like that get released via exercise. So I just really kept, venturing off and discovering more about it, the benefits. But it really came down from just being someone who was athletic from very young. I used to play soccer, I used to box. I now do martial arts, which is capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of grew into something where I continuously and consistently try to get 30 minutes of movement each day because that's what I feel like my body needs. And tapping into that, I started realizing that, for example, I used to do the 9 to 5, and being sedentary for a big portion of that day really helped me realize that, well, first, a lot of my colleagues and people that I speak to on a regular basis, they don't get enough movement. And so that's the premise of the Facebook group that I actually have at the moment, is to help people realize, because everyone, whatever, if they know or not, it's kind of intuitive, and it's kind of sometimes we just need a little bit of a reminder, or just that visioning, or someone kind of a little bit of accountability to help them remember that movement is a completely normal thing to integrate into their lives. So I think that has inspired me to take this even a bit further, to
Mm-hmm.
something that I felt that was just something that ingrained in my kind of everyday life. So it was kind of a growing process, nothing really just I had an epiphany or anything, but Yeah, that's a bit of that.
Okay. Well, let's go back to when you were a kid and you like hyperactive
Uh-oh.
kind of thing when you were in class. Is that why you needed to do the movement and that kind of stuff? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I mean, okay, well let's be honest. I barely graduated from high school. Yeah, I even remember speaking to my principal and she's like, please get some extra math and English like in your because I'm really being nice to you, but please go back. And I think that was for me kind of not being guided. There's a lot of things that I just wasn't focused, and I think that was part of it. I just didn't realize that I needed to move, and when I was younger, 8 years old, I was like the class clown, and I'd get in trouble all the time, and I just needed to move, but I didn't realize it. And actually, my brother, who has two kids now, and his youngest is kind of similar. I'm like, I think it kind of runs in the family. Um, and the reason why I find that also funny is because at the end of the day, it wasn't until afterwards, later in life, in like my 20s, that I realized that I was motivated and I ended up getting a master's degree in like marine sciences. So I kind of proved to myself that that kind of stereotype that I had as a kid and almost barely graduated from high school was just a matter of me turning things around and then becoming super motivated and accomplished in, being able to do things that I had never imagined. Um,
Yeah.
and
Part
it
of the
was kind
difference could be too
of,
that when you were in school, you had to be there. And
absolutely.
you might be a little bit like my son always was. He was, I mean, on the level of the genius scale kind of thing, the
Yeah.
intelligence scale, he was
Mhm.
way up there.
Okay.
And he always got in trouble and stuff, and he was the class clown, all those things. And part of it was because he was so smart, he was bored to tears, and it wasn't like, and he didn't want to be challenged more. It's not like he would have said, I think I need to go in the advanced classes. No, it was like he just wanted to do what he wanted to do, and
Mhm.
he didn't want to focus. And so he would try to do things to move his body as a distraction, kind of fill that void kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor by any means. So
No, but
I
yeah.
just I just kind of feel like you remind me, that story reminds me a little bit about my son.
Yeah.
And the difference is he had to be there, whereas you did. So it was like, meh. But
Yeah.
later when you made the choice
Yeah.
to do the education stuff, it was much easier because it was your choice and not what you were being forced to do. Does that sound like it
Absolutely.
might be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own story and own type of, but absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's only later being aware of these type of things. For example, now that I just started my business and I realize that I have so much creative space to do what it is that I want. And I don't have that feeling of, oh, I have to wake up in the morning. Like I
Yeah.
purposely wake up even earlier so that I can actually get things done because of things that I want to do. So it's the choice of being able to
Yeah.
actually do what it is that you want to do. And I think when you kind of focus, that makes the world of difference.
Yeah, when that's the people that make great entrepreneurs, because a lot of people do better in the school setting to where somebody tells you what to do, when to do it, and all that stuff. And that's great. Some people do
Yeah,
better in that. And they couldn't do it very well as an entrepreneur because they didn't have somebody cracking the whip and telling them what to do.
yeah,
But it's easy to be an entrepreneur when you've got that kind of mindset because you are so good at motivating yourself when it's something that you want to do.
yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
find that it's really intuitive and natural. And it kind of comes down to choice because I also play music and there's a
What do you
component.
play?
I play the piano. I started with the piano, and
Okay.
then I keep rhythm really well. So I even had a percussion professors, and we played. It was music from West Africa. I played the djembe,
Oh,
and uh,
wow.
and my teacher said, you learn really fast, but you forget really fast. So and I've always known that about me. It's that I have to be repetitive with something that I do, so I ingrain it.
Yeah.
And now I'm practicing the trumpet. I'm getting a lot better. And
Okay.
there's this element of music, that the improvisation, that I love about it. And it's that I find that really is the creative space that allows me to really channel what it is that I'm trying to do. And it's, you can be playing music, or I also do martial arts, which the basic component of it is to improvise, and it's kind of letting your own personality show through movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think that helps me, running this business, is to just kind of go with the flow and really embrace that creativity part, which I find that everyone has. It's just I've made a choice to really focus it and do it this way.
Yeah. Well, you know what happens to a lot of people is they're in school and some teacher says, "Well, don't do that because you're not going to be very good at that." And so
Yeah,
they don't even try anymore,
yeah,
because there are a lot of people that would be amazing artists, amazing singers or musicians and all our ball players and everything, but somebody at some point has shut them down, right?
yeah, definitely.
And so it's wonderful that you can get into that creative space and recognize the things that help you emotionally and physically to have the best life possible. And so I'm assuming now I am in your group, but I hate to admit it, I don't get in there a lot because it's, I'm busy with all these other things.
Of course.
I need
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
in there more and do the challenges. I will say.
yeah.
But you help your people in your group, I think, to wake up all those parts of them too, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, I think something that's really important for me is to help others realize that everyone's capable of really, everyone has the capability of pushing their own limits.
Hmm.
Some are excel in other aspects, and some are weaker, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we're all at par. And I think me being able to really be consistent in having that good habit of actually doing exercise and really taking it to the next level allows me to understand that perhaps this is where I can help people, and people can teach me on other things, and you have to really be open and be a student at all times. But I find that helping people realize that they have their own capabilities, I think that's like really, now that I'm saying it, it's kind of like the most beautiful part of it, because
Hmm.
I'm not saying, oh, you need to do this or do that. Do what it is that feels right. And as long as you're doing that, you're doing what I do, just in your own way. And that's really nice to share, because at the end of the day, we have our good days and bad days. And if we can talk about that, that's really being human. And that's what I like most.
Yeah, well, I like to tell my clients that it's important to learn to listen to your own body because
Mm,
we can play the comparison game all day long and we look at somebody else and they've got this physique and it's like, well, I want to do everything that they're doing to create that, but your body may not be capable of
yeah,
creating that because we're all so different. And
yeah,
so I love that you help them to move and to be more accountable, but you also help them to listen to their bodies so that they're doing the
absolutely.
right things
Yeah.
for their body instead of just following a mass movement. Because let's face it, the part that I help people with is that they've been dieting, and
Mm,
so they keep trying to put themselves in this little box of this is the way I need to eat to do this, and it's helping them to get out of that diet mentality that which is a horrible place to live.
yeah.
And you help people to learn to move their bodies in a way that is good for them instead of always just kind of finding this somebody's doing this over here, let me try that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's helping. Oh, I like what you said just there. It's listening to the body, because I find that what has helped me the most, now that I can speak about it, is through all the hard times that I actually had to go through in order to come to this place where I am now. Because I wasn't always, doing what I'm doing right now. I had to really learn some things. And I think that's what makes us all human. And I think that's why I can, at least I try to relate to people, because I understand that uh, despite being in different scenarios or whatever, the feeling of going through hardship and all is something that we can all talk about. And it really takes kind of a moment of reflection and being into your body, right? Which
Hmm.
can overflow into other aspects. And that's something that really I find interesting as well. But really just kind of being in that zone and then sharing, which is amazing. And it happens whether diets or body or it's the spiritual or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back to what are these challenges you speak of?
Yeah. Oh, the challenges. Oh, in my life, for example. Well, I mean,
Well, take
it-
us. I want to see your growth. I want to see, you're polished now. You do all this stuff and everything, but show me the raw stuff. Come on, man.
okay, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I, there's just I had run-ins with the law, for example. I mean, I was just heading in the wrong direction. I
So
don't want to
what
get.
woke you up to
I think
that it was
it's
the wrong direction and you needed to make a change?
well, I think I've been through different scenarios where life kind of gave me it gave me a lesson. I'm like, oh, I can't be doing that. And I just had a lot of growing up to do because I think it starts off with self-love, to be honest. And I was nowhere near where I am today. And by not having that self-love, to be honest, I just treated people wrongly. I made bad decisions. I just, yeah, again, had run-ins with the law. I had the problems with alcohol, things like that. And it's just one thing after the next, and life just kept giving me these hard lessons to deal with. And there comes a moment where you're like, I can't do that anymore. And then that's a step forward. And then life hits you with another lesson, and you're like, oh, I can't be treating that person like that anymore. So it's that continuous kind of stepping stone that has led me to where I am today. I know I'm kind of avoiding your
You
question, but
are avoiding. I see what you're doing there too. Well, I used to, every time something would show up, I would say, life lesson number 237. And then I would, the next time I would just make up a number, because sometimes it felt bigger than others. So sometimes lesson 23, lesson 237, lesson 500, depending on how big that lesson felt is what kind of number I gave it, but I got them all the time. So I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable right here, right now. Okay. So go back and tell us you were having a problem with alcohol. You were having a problem with um, the way you were treating some people.
yeah,
And,
yeah, absolutely.
be vulnerable for a minute. Your people who
Mm,
follow you are going to love you even more when you're
yeah.
vulnerable and they can see that if this is where I'm at right now, I could
Mm,
be there where he's at. And
absolutely.
they
Yeah.
will see something in you that inspires them even more.
Yeah. Well, for example, I mean, when it comes to treating people wrongly, for example, I family members, I have younger brothers, and I wasn't there for them. I remember my my youngest brother, he said, I was never bullied at home, but I was bullied when I got back home. Oh, sorry, I wasn't bullied at school, but I was bullied at home. And that made me really think. And I was like, wow. And it's crazy because now that I look at it, I would never treat anybody like that. But I came to a realization that we all had to be in that scenario in order to have that growth come forward. So yeah,
Mhm.
I just and I think it really comes back to that self-love. That's why I keep coming back to it, because I wasn't happy with myself and I just treated my brother poorly. Like I neglected him, I made fun of
So he was
him.
the youngest.
Yeah, the youngest. And then with my middle brother, we would fight, for example, and it just came from a space that was not, it was me being uncomfortable with who I was. I at school, I didn't have any problems with anyone. I was part of the popular crowd, but I think it's because I just tagged along and I knew I had enough social cues in order to kind of defend myself, but kind of follow other people. I was kind of I just followed
Part of
people.
the
And
group.
and I didn't really have my own personality. And I remember even that's funny. My best friend's cousin, like in grade 5. I just remember this. It's kind of just a memory. It'd be funny to look back at his comment, and he said find yourself, kind of be unique, something along those lines. And clearly he saw something in me, like you're lost, and I don't know how else to say it to you, so I'll just write it in this kind of yearbook. And I always remember that, and I felt it was true, and I think it just came out in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Again, with alcohol, for example, I would um we would go out with friends and we would go to clubs and all these things, right? When you're 19, 20, 21. And I would just drink too much. Why? Because I just was uncomfortable. Not necessarily with who I was, but with myself. And I just didn't know how to act with people. But I always kept this kind of composure. And it's kind of like what you're saying right now, be vulnerable. And I just never was able to do that beforehand. And I think there's just I couldn't be where I am today had I not, gone through those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that people were like giving me pointers and suggestions. It's just I had a closed mind and I didn't listen to people, and it just got worse and worse. Where again, it kind of led me against authorities, and you come to this realization, you're like, whoa, how did I get here? And then you start thinking about your parents and then your friends, and my I grew up in the church, for example. So I'm thinking of all those people. I'm like, Luis, you gotta change. This is insane. This is really a close call. And I think being there, being conscious enough of those of what was happening and what I need to change has really helped me, to
Mm-hmm.
avoid certain things that I could have really gotten into.
Yeah. Well, as teenagers and everything, we get into crowds and we just kind of follow along with them because let's face it, most of the time people at that age and younger don't want to stand out. The whole thing is standing out and looking different from everybody else is um suicide basically, so it is, that's the thing because the thing that everybody as a human being wants to do is fit in. They want to be part of
Yeah,
something. And
yeah.
so when we're that age, we're looking for what is that thing we're going to be part of. And we find somebody that feels good to be with them, then we just kind of tag along. And sometimes that can, branch out to bigger things. It's like I remember at one time when my daughter was young and she was in middle school. All of a sudden, she started coming home and she started painting her nails black. And then she wanted to wear black lipstick and she was wanting to do all these things. And I told her, I said, now, when you get older, you can make that decision. But right now, even though you want to be an individual, you're being an individual that looks like these people. So that's not being an individual. I said, so
Hmm.
we're going, since I'm your mom, we're going to dress this way, we're going to act this way. And then when you get in high school, if you feel like that's you, then be you.
Yeah.
And I was so glad I did that because she kind of stepped away from those people. She ended up doing cheerleading. She did all that stuff and she never ever wanted to go back into that crowd. And,
Hmm.
but I'm not a mind reader or can't tell, the future and stuff. So I don't know what would have happened if I'd never stepped in. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people hear those things and they think, well, you should let them be individuals and let them do that. But I feel like sometimes as a parent, we're supposed to be directing.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all that to say that all those things that you were doing, it was to find who you wanted to be. And we don't
Yeah.
know who we want to be until we've tried out. It's almost like trying on shoes or hats. You
Yeah.
know, let's try this
Absolutely.
one for a little bit, see if that fits. Nah, that doesn't feel good. Let's try this one. And so
Yeah.
you finally got to this place after all of these mountains and valleys that you went through to say, ah, I can see how this picture is going to go if I continue like this.
Yeah. And
And then you change.
just to continue with that thought, because something that I've really held dear to me actually when I finished my master's, for example, because I actually come from an immigrant family. We're originally from El Salvador. There was a civil war. My family left because four of my uncles were kidnapped and murdered during the Civil War. So I've
Oh,
got cousins
wow.
who don't have any families or parents. And there was this when I when yeah, live growing up well, I'm in Canada at the moment. I grew up in a community where it was really diverse, people from all backgrounds. And it's funny that the way that I was going was kind of imitating what I grew up with. Coming from a Latino background, coming from an immigrant, really impoverished neighborhoods and things like that. It was something that I thought was normal, and I think that's why I easily got into that road. But then that's when you realize as you're a kid, you're in that same situation as a young adult. And then you have this click, you're like, no, but this can't be happening to me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's what I saw when I was young. But when I finished my master's, I said, see, this is what if you give, for example, in my case, a Latino the opportunity, we can also accomplish these great things. And it was kind of a turning point for me where I said, for all those things that I saw when I was young and that I grew up with and people that I looked up to, I was able to, like, thank God I there was this switch and I was able to accomplish something that I know that they could have accomplished as well. It's just I had these kind of scenarios that helped me and guide me on my path to say that's not the right choice. And some people paid the consequences, and luckily I kind of went out ahead. So I think that definitely plays, and that goes with the crowd that I was following, and it's kind of like having those discussions. And again, I think people may have mentioned certain things, I just wasn't ready to receive it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what is that saying that is when the student is ready, the teacher will come. So when you're ready to make changes, that's when the right coach shows up or the right entrepreneur or the right, just the right path shows itself to where you can see it. Because, I always talk about how, um, when you start to buy a car and it's a car that you've never really seen out on the road, you buy that car and suddenly they're everywhere because
Yeah.
and parked all around you, and they were there all along, they just weren't in your focus. And so you finally get to a place where you can focus outside of this space that you've been hanging out in with all these people that are just the same way.
Mm-hmm.
When you can start focusing on something else, then that's when you start seeing all the opportunities that affords you. And people don't change is one of the hardest things to do, even though it's a constant. And so it's cool when I like hearing your story and everything. You just made a decision that said, I'm not doing this anymore. What can I do different? And then you made that happen. And that's a very strong personality that can do that, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people will stay impoverished, they'll stay miserable in what they know instead of jumping forward. And so I love that you can share how you made um, that movement to the different life that you wanted to live.
Yeah, I probably should have started there actually.
That's all right. As long as we get there, that's all that matters, because
Yeah,
to me,
absolutely.
it's like the whole thing I love about this podcast that I have, it's people's stories. And I love being able to go from where they were
Hmm.
and as the movement goes to where all of a sudden this epiphany happened to
Yeah.
to help them. And sometimes, like if you hadn't made the decision when you did, you still
Hmm.
would have made the decision later. It might have been a catastrophe that brought you to that.
I
Um,
believe that. Yeah.
yeah, because there's a lot of people that I've interviewed that have had horrible catastrophes that happen, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, or, having an accident or something that actually, opened a different door for them. So you are really, really blessed that you had a door that was cracked a little bit and you just took it on open and you stepped
Yeah.
through and became a different person.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that help me. For example, I find that even my mom says, like music has helped me because it really instilled certain traits that I didn't have when I was younger. When I picked up the piano, for example, I was just continuous at it. And I think that's what helped me, for example, later in life to study because I just had certain habits or that drive, or if I start something today, I'll finish it later. So yeah, there's just kind of like different factors that had something to play here, and I had different things happen to me, but I'm so happy that it I don't know, there was always a way out, and I took that opportunity. If I didn't jump at it, it's like jumping out of a moving car kind of, scenarios.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
actually that's kind of how I feel actually. That's pretty accurate. I've been in a bunch of moving cars, and as soon as I was about to go into an accident, I jumped out and started walking, and I hitchhiked on another car and found another opportunity. Yeah, so I think
yeah.
that's happened to me a few times.
That's beautiful. I bet everybody that listens to that can resonate to that story. I'm telling you, because there have been
Yeah.
so many times in my life that it's been kind of the same way. And I like to say that, it's like we can't see the path that's in front of us. We just, very far. And so we don't have the ability to be up above and look and say, yes, if you take that right, you're going to be having an
Yeah.
accident. Go ahead and take a left, even though it seems longer, and you'll go around here and everything will be perfect. But that's
Hmm.
what they hire us for too, is to be able to look above and look at what's going on and give them a better path to get to where they want to go, because we can't see what we can't see. And so that's one of the things that you do with your group, is you help people to see this is a way to make this work, and you help them to make sure that they're listening to their bodies and that they stay true to what they say.
Yeah.
And me being a hypnotist, one of the things, and a life coach, one of the things I tell my clients is that, and you may tell yours this too, I have no idea, but I'll just go ahead and tell it, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, please. I'm curious.
Okay. Well, when we tell ourselves that we're going to work out, for instance, and we're going to go, I'm in the morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk for 2 miles. Or even if you say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk, and the clock goes off and you raise up and it's like so cold outside and you're cuddling in the blankets and you say, well, I don't think I really need to go today. I'm just not feeling it. If you do that often enough, then the next time you tell yourself that you're going to do it, your subconscious is going to pop in and it's going to
Mhm.
say, well, she doesn't do it anyway, so I'm not going to listen
Mhm.
to it. So the next morning when the
Yeah.
clock goes off, it's going to say, you don't really need to go. And your
Right.
subconscious is going to be talking you into staying in bed.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you do what you say you're going to do, and so I tell people that even if you don't feel like going, make the effort to get up and put on your workout shoes, to put on your clothes and walk out the door, walk down the steps. Then, if you decide you don't want to go, you can go back in, because you're
Yeah.
teaching your brain that you
Mhm.
do what you say you're going to do, because you said you were
Right.
going to walk. So you're going to go for a little walk down the steps and everything. And
Right.
then if you do that often enough, the next time you wake up, your brain's going to say, your subconscious is going to say, you feel so much better when you go walking. If you go ahead and get up and go now, then you'll feel so much better all day, and it will work really hard to convince you to go.
Yeah.
And so the more we can keep our word to ourselves, the
Mm.
more our subconscious mind will help be our motivator to get up and do the activity. Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because I
Yeah.
mean, easily apply it in so many different scenarios.
Hmm.
I mean, keeping accountable to yourself and what you do and onto other people, for example, it really brings things into perspective. Yeah, and I like that analogy. It's because getting started is probably the most difficult thing.
Yeah. And you're teaching your subconscious mind that what you say is what you're going to do. So you
Right.
can either teach it that you're going to do it, or you can teach it that you're not. But I want to
Mhm.
teach mine that I will, so that it helps to push me to do the things that I say I want to do, instead of
Yeah,
kind of convincing me that it's okay not to.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
All right, so we are getting close to time, but I want to ask you a few more questions before that, if you don't mind. So,
Yeah,
one of the
absolutely.
things I want to ask is, with all the people that you have in your group and all the people that may be listening or watching right now, so if you could give them three things to do starting right away that would help them um to move their body, to do the things that you ask them to do for their health and everything, what are three things that you could tell them that they could start doing, and then you can tell them how to be part of your group and all that stuff too.
Do you mean in like a practical kind of tips to
Whatever
give
you
people?
want to tell them, whatever you intuitively, what do you feel like you need to advise people? Because it's going to be,
Yeah.
different people that are. So let's just say they're wanting to move their bodies and be healthier. What are three tips that you can give them?
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back to what we had mentioned before. It's like feeling what is best for you because again, getting started is the most difficult part. And if you like dancing, try to go into that just a bit more, or if you really don't move, really start simple because biologically speaking, we're meant to move. I know that culturally speaking, working the 9 to 5, having computers in front of us, I mean, cell phones, it's really a new phenomena. But when it comes to, evolutionary, this is a million years building up to where we are today. So I think keeping that into account that biologically speaking, we're meant to move, we're built in a certain way that not being sedentary is actually really crucial. And I think just tapping into that and knowing your capabilities, right? So if you like to walk, walk a bit more, you know, really do something that you find comfortable. If you are sitting down a lot, get up, just kind of maybe do a squat imitation, which is, drop down with your butt to the ground and then just get up. So I think it's just doing those small little things, allow your body to, again, just kind of tap into something that is beyond us because I mean, like, consciously we might be doing something, but subconsciously we're tapping into something else. And I think that's the first thing. I think it's just kind of listening to what it is that you're thinking, feeling, and then from there kind of deciding, all right, well, what is it that I already do and how can I do more of that? And I found something interesting that someone told me that we're told, what is your passion in life? And once we find that passion, we'll just do it. And it's completely the wrong advice. You have to try and dabble in many different things and find something that you do like enough to say, I can do this. And
Yeah.
then with time, you become passionate about it. So it's really starting easy. I mean, I didn't start doing 30 minutes a day, like say 5 years ago. I really went to the gym once or twice. I really didn't know what I was doing. I would ask people advice all the time. And I think with time, I just kept, expanding my horizon. So it's kind of like it being in tune with your body. And then second, doing more of what it is that you do. And then third, it's kind of like that exploration. Who can help me? What is it that I don't mind trying, or what is it that I think I'm actually good at? Because as humans, we're like good at many things, and there's many things that
Hmm.
we're not good at. And when you find something that you like, it's worth exploring. So I think that's something interesting. And yeah, so if you're interested in tapping into that type of idea, at newdynamou.com, that's the Facebook group. We have a lot of engaged people who really share that type of idea. And I think again, it's because it's kind of something that naturally springs out of us. And I also like the idea of looking at kids. I wonder to myself, why can a kid fall and he'll accidentally do a cartwheel on his way down, or almost do a backflip,
Yeah.
myself, well, as an adult, why can't I do that? So it's kind of everyone's own motivation to discover what it is that they're capable of. And for me, I'm like, doing a handstand looks fun, so I did it every day, and it took me about like a year to do a handstand. And now that I can do it, I'm doing different tricks and things. And
Hmm.
but it's knowing that everyone has to start from ground zero. And luckily in the group, in the Facebook group, there's so many people at different levels, and at the end of the day, everyone's just encouraging each other because as you know, you're holding yourself accountable, and we're all at different levels. And I think that's the human aspect of it. And it's really nice to see people kind of put themselves out there and just, you know, say, I did my best today, and that's definitely worth noting. So that's kind of like the energy that's in the Facebook group that I'm currently building.
Yeah,
It's
perfect.
super fun.
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention real quick, I think I know something, and I don't know the particulars, but you got some kind of challenge or something?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for reminding me because I'm not used to being on the hot seat. And yeah, so we've got a challenge because actually in the group for the founding members of the group, we have chats, and I threw out a couple polls and surveys, and a lot of people are actually looking for accountability. And I think that's really interesting because no one said, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. It's more or less, how can I hold myself accountable? And it's to other people. And I find that it's a great place to start. So the 29th, we're actually we're
Of
hoping we're
January?
yeah, of this month. Yeah,
Okay.
of this month. So we're keeping the doors open because what we're doing is that we're sending out surveys for the people who want to participate and really getting the feedback. And I've got some tough questions to ask that really help to kind of understand the reason why, you know, you want to get started in this challenge. And that way we can actually build something that is really personalized and customized for everyone, and that's really encompassing and really targeting you know, issues that people might be facing, like excuses and accountability. And I know that we're all busy, we have responsibilities and stuff, but this is a way that we can actually do this together. So on the 29th, we're going to be starting a 7-day challenge. Yet to be determined what exactly it's going to comprise of, but this is a way that we can actually get people moving. And it was really something that the group actually decided to do. And it's kind of me taking all that information and putting it to something tangible where people can actually participate. So it's going to be like this group
So how do people
movement
get
thing.
involved in that if they want to? And I
Yeah,
know you
so
said it's a paid thing, but it's a very low price point, right?
yeah, absolutely. So the idea was for two reasons. So it was for me to kind of get that, to be comfortable to offer, let's say, a service or a product, and really say, listen, I'm putting this value here, and in exchange, because that's what I ended up understanding, is that money in and of itself is actually an energy, and
Yes.
when I give you a value or something, you know, there's this exchange that happens, and it's an energy exchange. So for me to practice that, I really am putting this together, and I asked if you can just give me, for the price of a cup of coffee, we can do this 7-day challenge. And it's something that is a low barrier where people can say, the reason why I'm not participating in this challenge is not because of the money. And that's kind of the second reason. I really want it to be accessible for many people and to reduce the barriers so that people can actually take care and invest in themselves. I mean, if you can invest $5 on yourself and really hopefully and see a transformation after these 7 days, I mean, that's an amazing exchange there. So I don't have the link offhand. We can definitely put it in the description, hopefully.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's a link that you can follow, and then it'll take you to my Shopify store. So that way I can accept your cup of coffee, basically. And then after that, I'll send out a survey so you can, and I've got these 8 questions, difficult questions to ask you, the reasons why, what are your excuses and things like that, and what it is that you want to see out of the challenge. And then once you feel that, we can kind of put all that together and really kind of yeah, make this thing come alive. So that takes place on the 29th. So there's a couple weeks left. Like I mentioned,
What time does it happen?
that is to be
You don't
determined.
know yet? Okay.
No, not yet. So hopefully, by, let's say today is the 17th, maybe 3, 4 more days to accept more entries. And that way we can have enough time to actually look at what it is that the responses came and then really build something from there.
Okay. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds amazing, but thank you for sharing that. And I'll get this out as ASAP so that I can
Yeah,
have the link in there and then people can
absolutely.
get on board and take advantage of being part of that. But I will tell everybody, just make sure that you go check out newdynamou.com, right?
Yes. Well, the Facebook group is dynamou.com.
Dynamou.com. Okay.
And then yeah, to my Shopify store, it's dynamostraps.com. Yeah,
Okay. All right. So definitely go and check out his group because I'm sure all the links and the information is there too. So
absolutely. Yeah.
they can start getting that right away. But I
Mhm.
will put the link in the comments. And I want
Absolutely.
to just ask everybody here that's watching and listening to do me a solid and go ahead and subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to at the moment or watching at the moment. And let's get more people involved so that people like you, Lewis, can get in front of even more people and make a bigger difference, because I know that's what you want in your life, is to make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really so simple to want to share, want to help, and just seeing myself go through this transformation as a new business owner and then seeing other people participate. It's like community for me is like magic.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. I love the communities. All right, so thank you so much for being here. Do you have any last words of wisdom or anything you want to leave anybody with, or do you feel like you're complete?
Yeah, I think just being yourself and knowing that there's a lot of places, for example, at dynamoyou.com, for example, uh, there's just so much positivity, and it's really getting involved in a community that wants to support, wants to share, grow, learn. And I know that for myself, it was this is something that I wanted to create because that I really wanted to see this in the world. And I now that it's here and I see people just engaging, it's like I just want more people to like experience it. And I think one way to start is really tapping into like yourself, and then realizing that being with people and a community that is just there to support, and not it can be just like, just giving you a comment and supporting you, being motivational is definitely something that I want people. So that's kind of my last take, I think.
Okay,
that I can
good. Well, before we sign off, I want to let everybody know that my group is Make Lasting Change. That if anybody that wants to be part of my group, where we talk more about getting rid of the diet mentality. We don't do the movements challenges like you do. So I may have you come in and talk to my group for that,
Yeah,
because my
sure.
thing is just walk, dance, whatever the heck you want to do, as long as you're moving, right? Just the best exercise is the one you're going to do. But I help people, women primarily, to ditch the diets and start eating to thrive and with joy and peace and relaxation around food. And so you can join my group by going to vickypool.com and answer the questions to get into the group. And I would love to have you there. So it has been such a pleasure, and I appreciate you so much taking the time out of your evening to get on here and have this conversation with me.
Thank you so very much, Vicky. It's been a pleasure. And if you guys invite me to your group, I would be happy to just participate and help and learn and grow at the same time.
All right, perfect. So good night, everybody.